It's Madam Webbin time, aka the latest installment in the We Need to Maintain Our Spider-Man Rights Sony Spider-Verse. Now, I do think it's funny, I am literally more dressed for the occasion than literally anyone in this movie, but we will get to that. But I don't know if I can fully express how ready I've been for this movie. I saw one brief trailer and truly hoped it was going to be the fully committed, hilarious garbage I wanted Morbius to be, and I feel like that's mostly what I got, despite some people disagreeing. This is by no means a perfect movie. I am sure no one thought I was trying to suggest that this is a perfect movie, but I would gladly watch it again right now, which is more than I can say about some of the other movies that I've seen recently in theaters that would probably be considered objectively better movies. And to my added delight, some of the humor that actually landed was intentional. Perfect Valentine's Day movie all around.
I thought you were taking me to a Valentine's Day movie. You said Sydney Sweeney was in it.
Sydney Sweeney is in it. There's so many things that this movie seems to be doing the most of. Like, I haven't seen product placement this egregious and absurd since a Transformers movie. It's almost a work of art in its own right that left me thinking, wow, better stick to this company's main competitor. Insert product name here, kills. I don't know if I've ever seen a product placement have such a bearing on the climax of a movie, more so than I've seen it here. This just feels like Sony was like, hey, this company spending a lot of money. We would really like you to just, redesign this whole conclusion around that company. Literally a piece of the most absurd product placement I've ever seen, and I'm a YouTuber. Before getting into some specific thoughts, the acting as expected is pretty rough in areas, but it honestly just adds to the vibe I wanted. There's a lot of very descriptive dialogue where characters are just talking out loud to no one in specific, kind of like when you're playing a video game and you just kind of like leave a character hanging out in place and eventually they're just gonna be like,
looks like this note is for May. Some kind of puzzle lock.
There's a lot of that dialogue. It really just all falls into that perfect zone for me of not needing to care whether it's good or not, so I can just let it take me on a ride. Because Morbius was just way too concerned with being badass, because I think Jared Leto really thought he was badass. Dakota's just playing it with an awkward, almost disconnect that serves this movie so well. It's like at some point during the pre-production, she realized what this was and was like, I got you. And if you're remotely familiar with the Madam Web character, that really won't do you much good here at all. To make things more spider-related, they've completely altered her origin. While she is heavily involved with Spider-Man in the comics, she actually gets her powers from the mutant gene like the X-Men do, whereas this movie directly ties her abilities to a spider. But no matter how she gets them, her powers give her the ability to see the future. So when she keeps getting these flashes of a shoeless man brutally murdering 3 young girls on a train, she stops it from happening, changing their futures forever, pulling them all into her web. But you probably don't need clairvoyance to know that this movie was gonna bomb, just like I don't need it to know that today's sponsor, Surfshark, is gonna be there to secure my online activity. With Surfshark VPN, you can use one of their thousands of different server locations around the world to make your internet think that's where you are. So if you want to pretend you're in the Amazon researching spiders with Dakota Johnson's mom, you can! And if you want to conceal all the other weird stuff you do online, you can do that too. But where it really comes in handy is accessing titles that are only available in other countries on streaming services you already have. Like I know right now the United States doesn't have Talk to Me on Netflix, but Canada does. So all you gotta do is connect to a Canadian server location and you can catch up with one of my all-time favorites of 2023. Or say you want to catch Promising Young Woman after watching Saltburn, also available in Canada, though I must warn you, very different vibes. I personally just used it to rewatch the cinematic powerhouse Morbius on a US server, so I'd be all ready for Webbin time. Surfshark is fast, secure, blocks unwanted ads, can be used across unlimited devices, offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, and if you use code Jedi, you get an additional 3 months completely free, so make sure to click the link in the description down below and use code Jedi to try out Surfshark for yourself. Okay, I would have stayed committed to that costume the entire time, but it was kind of choking me, and since they don't have to, no. For a light rundown on what Madam Web even is with no real spoilers, it is indeed part of the Sony Spider-Verse, not the good one.
You're now a fully fledged member of the Spider-Verse. First of all, congrats.
Well, thanks, but it's not the Spider-Verse.
The extended universe Spider-Verse, where they're trying to lick the sweat off of Marvel's dripping ball back, except for, now the MCU is a corpse of what it used to be and there is no more sweat to suckle. Was that a horrible analogy? Did you hate that? Okay. But even being part of that Sony Spider-Verse, it's not actually in that same universe with Venom and Morbius, according to director S.J. Clarkson. It's just another spider multiverse so they could do whatever they wanted, but I don't really think this movie stepped outside the bounds enough for that distinction to even matter because they've chosen to have it take place in the golden era of 2003. Look at how cool I was in 2003. I kind of assumed they picked that era so they wouldn't have to worry about any potential overlap and maybe to set up for future plans, like if they wanted to fully establish a Spider-Woman Woman going to toe with Venom. They do the setup movie in 2003, but guess not? And honestly, a 20+ year gap is a lot. So then why the 2003 setting? Much like Morbius, this movie feels like it's from 2003, like they so perfectly fit in with those bad 2003 superhero movies like Daredevil and Elektra, with Madam Web at least seeming to steer into the goofy a little bit more. But unlike Morbius, which actually just felt like it was made in 2003 then lost in Sony's basement for 20 years, Madam Web seems to be more cosplaying as a 2003 movie. And it's not even the obvious stuff I'm gonna call out, like people keep pointing out that she dresses like she's from the 90s, but that makes complete sense to me. Her character would have been a teen in the 90s. It makes sense that she'd be holding on to that era. I know I refuse to give up my skinny jeans even though teenagers keep telling me it's time to stop, but my issue is that this movie really just seems to lack any kind of 2003 grounding. The most they do to establish the era is Dakota saying she can't make it to an event because she needs to watch American Idol. They flash a Dangerously in Love wall ad, and then they play Toxic by Britney Spears on the radio and specifically mention that it's going to be a big hit, even though it wasn't available at the time, but I'll allow it because it is a banger. Someone's even playing a PSP because Sony loves including their own technology in movies, but the PSP wasn't even close to coming out in 2003. The most aggressively 2003 thing they do is, again, more about the film tropes of the era, is setting up Sydney Sweeney, currently starring as hot love interest in successful rom-com, as the awkward, frumpy, nerdy girl that'll get to have a super glow up when they take off her glasses. Well, then sticking her in a short school skirt with knee-high socks for the culture, it's absurd. We've been losing our minds. I will say that she does the awkward, timid, nerdy girl exceedingly well. I am a big fan because I just thought it was really funny. It entertained me, at least.
I know Taekwondo.
But they picked the year 2003, so I thought that must be really important. I thought it might be to line up with Tom Holland's Spider-Man's age, but that doesn't track. It's not to avoid Morbius or Venom because they're not here. They almost actually make an aspect of the plot harder for themselves by being set in 2003, which I will get to. I can think of a few other reasons why they might want to take this approach to the story, but since I'm not sure we're getting a future with these characters or any of the characters they're teasing, it might have been a little bit optimistic to play this movie as a pre-origin. I'll obviously get into specifics about the movie soon, but sadly, like Morbius, a lot of the interesting things about this movie are happening outside the movie itself. The press run with Dakota Johnson has just been an absolute delight.
While my character in the movie may be able to see the future, I also can. And I know what the future brings. I know that when you see Madam Web, you're gonna love it. In fact, I think you're gonna see it twice.
What's next for Cassie Webb?
And I think that it's the coolest thing in the world. Take this seriously.
I feel like she and some of the other actors thought they were entering the actual MCU, or at least more connected, because Sony really likes to consider themselves the official partners and not the annoying younger brother that you have to keep around because it is technically his Xbox you're using. Except in this scenario, the Xbox is the film rights to one of the biggest superhero properties in the world. And while I don't have concrete evidence, I do know that Dakota Johnson changed talent agencies within a week of the first Madam Web trailer dropping, specifically mentioned talking to Elizabeth Olsen about the role for advice.
She said she had a great time and seemed very relaxed about it. So that was comforting.
And most of the actors tagged Marvel Studios in their announcement post before having to delete them. This was also pretty similar to what we saw go on with Morbius when Sony actually had to release a statement saying Morbius wasn't connected to the MCU officially after Tyrese Gibson said it was, and that Matt Smith said that Karen Gillan told him that working with Marvel was great, meaning he thought it was the same thing. I get that any of these people could have solved their problems with a Google search, but I assume that's what they think their agents are there for? Again, speculation, but I don't think it's outlandish to think that these people thought they were signing up for the prestigious superhero franchise. Dakota is giving it her all, though.
I have always really loved Marvel movies.
How many Marvel movies have you actually seen? And remember, you're good at lying, so you can use that.
See, this is gonna get me in so much trouble, so I'm gonna lie.
Just say all of them.
All of them.
She even learned car stunts. She's fantastic. Watch Cha-Cha real smooth. So let's start working our way through the movie, which means spoilers. As is obvious, we are following Madam Web, whose real name is Cassie Webb, but with 2 B's, and if that's all I knew about this movie, I'd be giddy as hell. And as has been memed to high hell in the trailers, the movie starts with Cassie's mom in the Amazon, researching spiders, specifically looking for a breed of spider said to have healing properties so extensive they'd revolutionize modern medicine before being betrayed and shot by her protection, Ezekiel Sims. And I must say, that the acting in this scene is genuinely some of the worst I've ever seen. I'll give Tahar Rahim a little bit of a pass because English isn't his first language. I've liked him in other movies, but his performance here is god-awful. I genuinely think almost every single one of his lines was ADR'd, so that's when they go in and replace audio that was recorded while filming with voiceovers that they record in a studio. But seeing how bad that all still turned out, I can only imagine what it was like before. And listening to him in interviews, his voice naturally sounds higher and brighter, so it feels like they lost a lot of impact and control by how gruff they wanted him to sound. No idea on specifics, but there were definitely massive sections of this movie ADR, just entire conversations where what's being said doesn't remotely line up with what the mouth is doing. Literally the line that everyone was excited to hear from the trailers, the line that felt like they were steering into the delightful shit show.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
He was in the Amazon with my mom researching spiders right before she died. Is not in the movie. It was an ADR line for the trailer. I am deeply upset. We are all deeply upset. Not as much of a loss as
I am Venom. I'm just kidding. It's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service.
Because that was actually recorded while filming and then pulled out of the movie, but I'm still upset. I want my line back. But back to the scene with the mom, the cartoonishly bad acting between the two of them. I wish I had a better example here for you today, but holy shit, we were off to a strong start with that. My expectations were primed, but I still couldn't have been ready for how unnatural a conversation could sound between two people. And the hilarity only continued when these Twilight-level speed indigenous people descended from the trees and whisked the mom away to a spring to be bit by a spider, which didn't heal her from the gunshot, but ensured that her daughter being born in that exact moment would grow up to be strong and healthy. And maybe some other things. This was potentially setting up for the existence of the Spider Clan, but I don't know. I just know they helped the mom because she had good intentions for looking for the spiders and was betrayed by an evil man. Honestly though, if they were that fast, why didn't they just stop him from stealing the superpower spider? Like, I know the answer is because the movie needs it, but still. Very cheesy all around, and I will argue that this scene wasn't even necessary and a symptom of modern cinema not being willing to let audiences, especially mainstream content audiences, have to think and figure things out for themselves. If it can be a mystery for the protagonist, it can be a mystery for the audience. As long as you're not dumb about it, it is way more satisfying to bring us on that journey. The movie very quickly lets us know that she was a foster child, their mom died in the Amazon, and that she kind of resents her for it. And I feel confident about removing that scene because I missed the first 3-ish minutes of the movie because they decided not to play trailer, so I was just standing around waiting for a soft pretzel like a jackass. So I missed the entire setup where the mom mentions why she's looking for this spider. Sims mentioning the spider giving people enhanced senses and speed, abilities he believes are wasted in Peru on the Las Arañas, legends who apparently use their powers to punish evil men with their black poison touch. Sick! Seems pretty clear what he's interested in, not sure why Cassie's mom didn't pick up on that. But you're probably thinking, damn Amanda, that all sounds really important for the baddie's origins and potential motivations, and that is correct, but I don't think it needs to be revealed in the first 3 minutes of the movie. Because they then just use that as a crutch for the rest of the movie to not have to work as hard because they know they've already spoon-fed us that information. But then they do in fact spoon-feed it to us again. Literally everything we learn about in that opening scene is revealed again to Cassie through the natural runtime. I swung back around to catch the 3 minutes I missed, and it literally adds nothing to the movie because it plays those scenes again later on. I feel like it actually leads to a less satisfying movie because we get less time with the baddie in the present, establishing further motive for any of the actions he took and has continued to take. We get like one scene of him explaining his current stress and why he wants to kill these spider women, but we don't really know anything else about him. Why did he want spider powers? Was it like just to have them? Because like I would totally get that, but maybe I just wanted more. I just really hate villains that feel like shells. Seeing as Ezekiel Sims is not really a villain in the comics, this just feels like lazy execution of a character switch up to the point that I had to wonder if Ezekiel Sims was always the intended villain. Maybe it was just the only villain they felt like they could use that they wouldn't mess up bigger plans down the line. No confirmation there, but I do have the screenwriter saying that maybe he won't be so villainous in the future, so seems like there was some thought put into it, but you know, maybe not enough, because I don't think we're getting another one of these. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll get the Madam Webbening sweep, the $1 billion, the 1,000% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It'd be a Madam Web sweep, I think.
Okay, that would also piss people off.
But speaking of the writers, that is where so many issues come back to. And that's not surprising because the people who wrote this movie are the same people who wrote Morbius, and a wealth of other literal trash. If you're wondering why people who consistently pop out scripts for bad movies keep getting the opportunity to work on major properties with major studios, I went on a bit of a deep dive because I had originally assumed it must be industry nepotism, it seems way more complicated than that. Basically, they got buzz around a script that ended up on the blacklist Dracula Year Zero, which went on to become Dracula Untold. In this scenario, a blacklist is actually a good thing. It's just a list of top scripts that haven't been picked up for production yet. But the director who eventually ended up with that script wanted a bunch of changes along with the studio, and they were fine making them. So right there, studios are gonna like people that are willing to work with any demands they have and make changes, even if it is to the detriment of the final project, because they will never admit that they're the problem with the final project. And then it just seems like a series of opportunities popping up based on that initial script until they hit Morbius and then got hired to write Madam Web before Morbius even released, so it didn't even have time to get the backlash. And I'm not even sure if they're responsible for the things I liked or disliked in Madam Web. I just know that Dakota mentioned that the script underwent extensive rewrites.
There were drastic changes. And I can't even tell you what they were.
And while those changes weren't enough to remove Sazama and Sharpless's writing credits, that was something that was rumored for a bit. So there's really no way to know what was originally the script, how much changed, what changed, how significant those changes were, unless that original script makes it online, which I don't ever see happening. Wow, that was a lot of rambling about the production. Back to the movie. So we're finally out of the Amazon and into 2003, where Cassie is a paramedic and her partner is Adam Scott. Well, he's played by Adam Scott. The bigger reveal is actually that this is Ben Parker. Yes, Uncle Ben Parker. Made all the more entertaining that in their first interaction, she asks him,
What, you've never been shot at in Queens?
which is exactly how most Ben Parkers die? Yeah, that's the kind of movie we're working with here. Amazing, spectacular, astonishing. I'll stop. But yes, his brother is Richard Parker having a baby with Mary Parker. There is presumably a little Peter Parker brewing in there inside Emma Roberts. So this reveal doesn't really matter unless their 2003 setting was to pop out an age-appropriate Spider-Man in the current timeline to go toe-to-toe with Venom, but again, not the same universe, and I don't actually think Marvel would let that go through, even though I don't know if they have the ability to say no. I just gotta assume they thought it would be fun. They just thought it was a fun year to work with. Now, one of my favorite scenes early on is one that also negates the need for an intro. They are playing a baby shower game where people need to write happy memories with their moms, and she just awkwardly rambles on about how actually no, she has no positive memories of her mom because she's dead.
Death in childbirth is super rare. I mean,
there's just nothing like an awkward baby shower moment to remind a mom that she could die on that table. And that is a much more interesting way to learn about her origin than the intro was. But while we're being introduced to Cassie, we're also covertly encountering each of the girls she will be spider-mommying who are destined to someday be spider-women too. It's really more like babysitting, but spider-mommying sounds more fun to me. She almost runs over Maddie Franklin on a skateboard. Sydney Sweeney's Julia Not Yet Carpenter is the discarded stepdaughter of the woman they just saved, and Anya Corzon lives in the same building. It's like they're all connected before they're even connected. But at this point, Cassie has no ability. She gets them while saving a man from a flipped car. She gets trapped inside and dies for about 3 minutes in the water before Ben brings her back.
did I die?
And whatever happened to her during that brush with death kickstarted a series of premonition-like flashes that she can't control. She rightfully assumes this is all in her head and some weird side effect of the accident she was just in, but then it gets harder for her to ignore when her horrible visions start coming true. Now, because of the intro, we can all assume that this is because the mom was bit by one of those spiders while she was giving birth and then infusing some of those powers into Cassie that she hasn't been able to access up until this point. But I still don't think it was necessary to show us that in the intro because she doesn't know what happened to her at birth, so it's still something she's gonna have to figure out during the movie, and there's no reason why we can't figure it out with her. So she's got her powers, but before we go down that web, let's check in on our baddie who wants to kill 3 teenagers. Is it because they're already a team of super spiders hunting him down for something he's done? Is it something more sinister? No, it's because he's cursed from stealing the spider. They don't explain the curse or how specifically he's cursed, just that he's plagued by nightmare visions of them killing him in the future, so he wants to pull a Voldemort and kill them before they get their powers. And I'm sure you can assume it worked out about as well as it did for Voldemort, but we're given no indication as to why they'd be hunting him down, no idea what he might have done since murdering Cassie's mom, what he's put his spider powers to use for. All we know is that he thinks he's cursed because he stole the spider, which is actually true, but they don't really do anything with that. So what is his grand plan to track down these spider gals that haunt his dreams? Bed and kill a high-ranking NSA employee to get her clearance code so he can gain access to super advanced facial recognition and audio surveillance tech that the world is not quite yet aware of so we can track them down. But the facial matches are entirely based on what he remembers them looking like in his head, and this little tech genius managed to create perfect images of them from his mind, then de-age them 10 years, which was literally just removing the masks. They look exactly the same. So it's just extra funny when the assistant's like, oh damn, they're younger than I thought. I didn't know we were hunting teenagers. They look exactly the same. What do you mean? You can literally see most of their faces and eyes in these masks, but all of it just feels so weird. Like they have to do this NSA song and dance for him to get access to this tech, but then they manage to perfectly recreate the girls' faces from his mind? It's a comic book movie. If you told me that this girl was an ultra genius hacker with her own illegal tech to track people around New York City through cameras and various alerts, I wouldn't have questioned that for a second. No one questioned the Bat Raider from Dark Knight. By going deeper and trying to ground yourself on that reality, you're just opening yourself up for more criticism, and here I am. Like, you think a major NSA employee going missing wouldn't be a huge deal? You think they wouldn't check to see where her clearance codes was being used outside the office? I saw how they caught Reality Winner. Whatever, it leads to the train scene where they've all somehow ended up in the same place where Cassie sees them being brutally murdered by this shoeless man. And yeah, if an extremely well put together dude in a full suit is aggressively walking towards you barefoot in New York, you should probably just run away because that's clearly gonna be a bad time. I realize that Ezekiel Sims doesn't typically wear shoes in the comics so he can like stick to the walls, but you went ahead and gave him a spider suit when he doesn't have one of those either, so might as well let the man blend in with some shoes. The things they're choosing to do and not do is so interesting. But Ezekiel doesn't even realize that Cassie is the daughter of the woman he murdered because he assumes that baby died. He's not even concerned with her or why she's helping these girls because she's just a minor inconvenience on his kill mission. I get that he's obsessed, but it is so dumb not to worry about the person who seems to know you're trying to kill these 3 girls, especially when it could help you figure out where they'd be going. Now I imagine you might be wondering if his decision to go at them well before they would have tried to kill him would speed up the process of them becoming spider people, but actually no. That's not the case. This might just be the biggest spoiler for the movie, so giving you a warning, big ol' spoiler that a lot of people are very publicly yelling about. They never get their powers in the movie, they don't even get close. All the clips from the trailers where they're in their costumes are literally from the nightmare he's having, occasionally with a bit of creative editing to make it look like it's part of their final battle. See that? That's just a wayward firework that he ricochets. And I think that is hilarious. The MCU is out here sticking randos in costumes in the background. We got Harry Styles and post-credit scenes, anything to draw in the Uber fans. And Madam Web isn't even going to give you the characters you think you're getting based on the trailers. Because this isn't their movie, this isn't Web of the Spider-Women, it's Madam Web, it's her web that matters and ties them all together. Back to the train though, she gets her death visions and shuffles them off.
Get up. Get off, get off. You're gonna die if you stay here. Get up.
Are you threatening us?
Get up. Hey, give me that back.
I don't really understand why he didn't just quickly kill the girls once they got on the platform instead of going for the cops first. Like, he's moving so fast that the cops don't even realize there was someone else there and end up putting out an alert on a woman abducting 3 teens. Thankfully, they don't seem to have specifically identified Cassie, but I really feel like the obvious answer here would be taking them to the police or even her fire department to clear things up. So obviously she's gonna steal a cab and hide them in the woods. And while it's not an instant connection between them, they do start to trust her way faster than I would have assumed.
I can see the future.
Oh, she didn't see that coming?
But then she just leaves them there to try to figure out what's going on and thinks, hey, let's have a look at Mom's spider research. A weird guy who can climb on walls is trying to kill these 3 kids, and spiders can also climb walls. Bringing us to yet another moment of this movie, showing us things we've already seen happen. She reads about the rumored spider people, their enhanced powers, and very comically tries to climb her own apartment wall. Moments like this are why this movie is more than Morbius could ever hope to be, and we are all blessed to live in a world where Dakota Johnson tried to climb a wall and falls so pathetically to the ground, and finally realizes, oh shit, my mom knew the guy that was trying to kill the girls. But again, no impact for us because we already know that. I know sometimes it can be really cool to like know something and then see a character realizing it on screen. That can be really satisfying. This movie doesn't do it that way. And much like with Voldemort, his early intervention attempts has just firmly solidified the beginning of his demise because now these totally disconnected teens are bonding. But sadly, they bond their way right over to a diner and start table dancing and are immediately recognized because somehow the Daily Bugle put out a same-day paper reporting on 3 potentially abducted girls? It is the same day. How is that already in a newspaper? Why couldn't it have just been a trucker listening to the radio and calling it in? That was so much effort. They had to make that fake newspaper. whatever. Either way, Ezekiel's little helper intercepts the police call so he can get there first. Now, we do actually really like the creative style of how the movie uses her visions. They're pretty clear. They don't repeat the same moments over and over once they establish what's happening. And she always has the most batshit tactics to change the outcomes. So the doomer ending is Cassie finding them just in time for Ezekiel to pop up and brutally snap Sydney Sweeney's neck on a diner booth while Cassie puts up an excellent bar brawl fight to her death. But don't worry, she has an intricate plan to prevent this.
Let's try that again.
She just slams into him by driving the cab through the diner doors. 10 out of 10 tactic. You can't out-arañas him physically. Your power is your mind, and your tool is a stolen cab. So they get away, and you'd think that this time he'd be concerned with who the hell this woman is, but he's not. At all. It's not until his little assistant is like, okay, well, her name's Cassandra Webb if you change your mind, which obviously makes him realize that she is very connected to him. His behavior is just so weird. It seems like such an afterthought. Like, I understand the tunnel vision on the mission, but like, you gotta be smarter. Because then the movie gets lazier than I could have even possibly imagined. While she's thinking of leaving the girls, she shares a vision conversation with Ezekiel, who literally reveals everything to her, that he killed her mom, that the girls are gonna kill him and destroy everything he's built. Except we don't know what he's built. He even tells her that they're gonna have powers in the future, all in the hopes that she'll just tell him where they are. Just wildly lazy, and now you've even given her revenge motivation. Line delivery here though? Gold.
The girls have powers in the future.
The only thing this achieves is her being fully committed to protecting them. Anya's dad's been deported, Maddie's are working abroad to avoid dealing with her, and Julia's dad is trying to move on with his new stepfamily, and also this.
My mom's in a psych ward.
So she'll be their mommy now, which means it's time to abandon them so she can go to Peru. Oh, I'm sorry, did that give you whiplash? Obviously the only way she can figure out what's going on in New York with this dude trying to kill them is to go to Peru and try to figure out what happened with her mom. So she leaves the girls with Ben, who's not remotely concerned about the implications of child abduction, so solid friend there. Guess he's willing to take on that great responsibility. And we know that Las Arañas will be waiting for her in Peru because he told us he would be at the beginning of the movie. It's all just so unnecessary. So his main function is to teach Cassie that her abilities go deeper than she thinks. Not only can she learn how to see what's coming, she can also weave her way to the past. Hits her with the soul disembodiment move.
Sounds like literally every therapy session I've ever avoided.
Where she learns that her mom didn't resent her. She was only looking for this spider to try to heal the neuromuscular disease Cassie was going to be born with, the one she actually has in the comics. So she gets to have this nice like beyond the grave closure moment with her mom where it's like she's actually in the past with her, letting her know that it all worked out. It's pretty corny, but sure. I feel like they might think that giving us that scene in the beginning is gonna make us care more about the mom now, but like, no, it did not hit. Then he leaves her with one last thing. If she harnesses her powers enough, she can be in multiple places at once. Uttering the phrase, and if you take on the responsibility, great power will come. Who wrote that line? I just need to talk to you. It's so bad. But it's back to New York where somehow her stolen cab with a smashed front end and missing plates wasn't promptly removed from the airport, but things are going to shit. Mary's water breaks while Richard is out of town.
Either I have peed myself or my water broke.
Well, honestly, you probably peed yourself because that isn't supposed to happen yet.
So instead of leaving the girls at the house, Ben just takes everyone to the hospital, so like the second their faces hit a camera, Spider Sims is on the hunt. But don't worry, Cassie has a plan for that too. If you thought crashing a car through a diner was cool, just wait until you see her drive a stolen ambulance through an upper level parking garage and crash down into the baddie. Civilians, I hardly know her. What does that mean? Dakota isn't playing chess, she's playing Battleship. Pulling out all the tricks, shocking him off the roof with an AED device, luring him into a fireworks factory to try and blow him up while they get rescued by a helicopter, which goes to complete shit. Guess she didn't look quite far enough ahead on that one. So in real time, she's seeing all sorts of different flashes of things happening. Fireworks exploding through the roof, teens falling, being blown up, and reacting in the moment to change things. Which unfortunately does make for a little bit of a mess in terms of how it's visually being presented to us, but honestly, I'm on board. Who needs Captain America when we have her? But that finally brings us to the most absurd moment of product placement I've ever seen. Atop this firework factory is a Pepsi Cola sign. They have literally orchestrated this stupid sign into being a key centerpiece of the climax, which obviously isn't going to be that satisfying because, as previously mentioned, none of these girls have powers yet. I was kind of waiting for Sydney Sweeney to do some taekwondo because she specifically mentions it earlier, but no. They're all just dangling to their deaths where the baddie just comically sets us up with a "you can't save all all three. And in case you already forgot that Santiago told her that she can be in more than one place at once, we hear his disembodied voice reiterating the great power line as she web extends to save them all just before he realizes he should probably just punch her. And now she's gonna prove that she can beat him with her mind, giving us probably one of the most effective camera zooms I've ever seen in a movie with "The girls were never your future. I was." That zoom was actually in the movie. That wasn't me. I did not do that for dramatic effect. So he gets crushed by the middle Pepsi P. Dakota seemingly gets paralyzed by the falling S that she saw all the way back in her first vision. Guess she couldn't dodge that one. Well, then also being blinded by a firework. Yes, this movie's ad placement literally paralyzes the protagonist. Okay, I don't think the sign actually did it, but it was definitely a contributing factor. Ezekiel might not even be dead based on what the writers said, so there's a chance he's only going to get killed by them in the future because he tried to stop it from happening. But overall, happy ending. Mary gives birth to a presumed little Peter Parker. Cassie is in a wheelchair and blind, but in a way that she seems like a more fun Bran Stark. She's just like seeing everything always, very ethereal and transcendent with her little knowing smile.
I can see better than I ever have.
It's so I love it. Just waiting for the day that they'll all become Spider Women, though there is no indication of when or how. I assume she's just like, here kiddos, everyone line up for a spider bite, time to be heroes. Showing us visions of them crime fighting, which she is also involved in by projecting herself from her mind. They didn't even film a new shot that is literally just the same image of them looking at his body from the building being reused. This whole ending scene is hilarious. I love every piece of dialogue that Dakota is delivering. It is absurd. You know, no mention that these kids still have actual parents, but that's cool. She's mommy now. So that's Madam Web, mostly. It is not good. The writing is atrocious. The logistics make no sense, but I'll be damned if I was entertained the entire time, and that largely has to do with Dakota Johnson. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. This was originally just gonna be like kind of short and just kind of going over some of the goofy stuff, but I figured that a lot of people probably won't end up going to see this, so I thought I'd just give you like a decent little rundown of the plot, even though I don't have all of the footage to work with. It's not usually the way I like doing things. I feel like if you're gonna see this movie for the memes, you're gonna see it anyway. And if you're not, you deserve to be along for the ride with the rest of us. Also, very sorry for the lack of content lately. I got very sick in December. I just kind of like crashed when I got back from it all. So trying to pull myself back together. I'm working on some bigger projects. I know I keep saying that, but there is stuff in the works that I'm hoping to get to you soon. But thank you for your patience. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Thanks again to Surfshark for sponsoring the video, and thanks as always to my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, leave a like on the video if you're into that kind of thing. All my social medias are listed down below if you want to follow me there. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm mostly okay, and we'll catch you all later. Just a word of advice in case it's ever relevant for you. If you ever plan to get a full body superhero suit, I would err on the size up from where you think the measurements are, or get it custom fit, because if that is too small, it will choke you.